Grasshopper Revisited. Now with text-to-speech and enumeration in Espanol.
I get a lot of reactions from a guy called Ron Paul Girls, who is both my number one fan and my number one critic.
Numero uno. Grasshopper seems like a nice guy, who's made some good observations. However, he's still weaning off of a land of liberal professors and pink party politicians, who call themselves green. All of whom employ delusionally parasitic talking points based on fuzzy math.
And instead of intersectionalism or Marxism, he's wanting veganism to be attached to libertarianism.
Numero dos. Grasshopper is obviously suffering from a bad case of duality. Veganism is merely a limb on the libertarian tree of life. The reality is that veganism is merely a part of the libertarian ecosystem.
Specifically, he has his own eccentric view of ecological libertarianism, which is interesting to talk about in some ways, because I think one of the clearest weaknesses of libertarianism is exactly its relationship to ecology. The vast majority of libertarians, like anarcho-capitalists, will just say, well, if it's your private property, you can do whatever you want with it. Well, if you buy a piece of land and cut down all the trees, this is a problem. They're just obvious issues of regulations and government paternalism, government oversight and intervention that come up under the heading of ecology, and they come up for vegans too. But anyway, that's his approach. That's interesting. If you're just talking about, people on the internet and the distorted view of the world we get to the internet, you might think this sounds like a viable approach or what have you. It's not.
Numero tres. Grasshopper thinks it's not because he doesn't understand the concept. For anything to work optimally, it must fit into an ecologically libertarian model or scenario. What Grasshopper doesn't understand is that anarchism as well as communism or feminism or what have you fails if its dogmas and applications are not fundamentally ecologically libertarian.
The last thing you're going to want to do is, let's say you organize your 5 friends who care about this specific issue. The last thing you're going to want to do is to hitch your cart to some obscure radical philosophy, whether it's Marxism or intersectional feminism or libertarianism. This is not pragmatic.
Numero cuatro. One of Grasshopper's problems is that he's calling libertarianism a weak, extremist kind of concept or party, when he apparently doesn't understand that the USA was based upon libertarian ideas as articulated in the Constitution, which laid out the mechanics for a constitutional democracy so that governments and people could not infringe upon citizens' liberties. Unfortunately, Negroes, women, animals, and other issues were not included. The libertarian ecosystem was created in the USA with such documents as the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Thomas Paine's pamphlets about common sense libertarianism, and so on. Unfortunately, Grasshopper is making no sense calling ecological libertarianism, which is based upon a collection of common sense libertarian principles that the USA, the most powerful and prosperous country in history, is based upon and is sadly suffering because of the endless waves of opportunistic and destructive parasites that operate in organizations like Grasshopper's Green Party.
We come from a culture, anyone who speaks English, anyone in the modern Western world, we come from a culture in an era that reviews, a culture in an era that treats rebelliousness as a positive trait in and of itself. And people slip into the assumption very easily that veganism is a revolutionary movement, simply because it's a challenge to one aspect of the establishment. Well, veganism isn't, and you make veganism weaker by attaching it to any kind of rebellious or revolutionary cause.
Numero cinco. Veganism is about respecting the liberties of animals as well as liberating your health from diseases caused by animal products and processed foods, as well as liberating the environment from the wasteful production of extra resources that are required to produce animal products and their loads upon the environment. Therefore, it's very much an ecologically libertarian diet. Grasshoppers attempt to skew the argument with oddball distractions like making it all about rebelliousness is screwy. However, you do have to fight for your right to party, and most vegans are more like mindless sheep.
If you have 5 people together and you're trying to change the local bylaws about cigarette smoking where you live, you're trying to get an anti-smoking campaign running, which in some parts of Europe is still a really necessary deal. Depending where you live, that may all be in the past tense, but there's some places where that's still a big struggle to reduce the use of tobacco. However many people you have involved at the beginning, 5 people, 10 people, whatever, say, okay, we're going to form this anti-smoking committee, this anti-smoking campaign. The worst thing you could do is say, we're only going to let people join who are intersectional feminists, or we're only going to let people join who are libertarians, or we're only going to participate with, and we're going to try to infiltrate the local libertarian party. This is taking an incredibly small and weak political movement and making it even smaller and weaker.
Numero says, An anti-smoking campaign is only valid if it's based upon the liberties of the parties involved, such as people subject to second-hand smoke, property owners' rights, and so on. So again, any valid anti-smoking campaign would be an ecologically libertarian campaign, and there are numerous examples of bad anti-smoking campaigns which are not observant of the liberties involved and create even more problems, such as the mindless drug wars that have gone on in the USA involving thousands of people who are imprisoned for nothing, which is paid for by dollars stolen from taxpayers.
So, in a sentence, the problem with digital veganism in this respect, the problem with the internet view of the world, is that people come to regard weakness as strength. People think that defining yourself more narrowly and in connection to one of these political causes makes veganism stronger, and it doesn't, it makes it weaker.
Numero 7. Grasshopper is the one defining himself more narrowly by being vegan-centric when he should be ecologically libertarian. Also, this channel is all about multimedia and breaking the entire country down to precincts which are walked and coordinated with teams for political ground wars combined with political air wars, print, multimedia, etc. This channel is all about the full spectrum of media integrated with the full spectrum of libertarian principles, whereas Grasshopper is all about a very myopic and confused approach that improperly defines and identifies the factors at play.
Now, why is that? This is part of the world of likes and thumbs up and all kinds of things. I mean, yes, if you have an obscure blog, and instead of just being vegan, you identify with any one of these tiny political parties or movements, your blog may now get more attention, more comments, more fan mail, more thumbs up, more viewers on YouTube, what have you. On that scale, this kind of factionalism is rewarded. You can get a niche market, a niche viewership that grows very easily. And probably someone like, there's a channel called A Privileged Vegan. She identified with, I don't know, some of the most far out. She took on a certain ideological post that got her a lot of attention from non-vegans.
Numero 8. I forgot who the douchebag is Grasshopper's talking about, and I don't want to look her up because I try to keep the mind numbing to a minimum. Whatever this goofball chick is into loses credibility and integrity the further it strays from ecological libertarian ethics and applications. Grasshopper's point that she should always separate the messages though is nothing but crazy trolling. By including valid vegan messages with whatever crazy nonsense she's into, at least they're getting some value out of the events, as warped as they may be, and she's reaching more people.
Let's say it's Marxism. Any of these people, or anarchism. I mean, anarchism, still, I don't see many vegan channels that are sincerely interested in anarchism. What I tend to see are vegans who flirt with the faded memory of the role anarchism and the ALF had 20 years ago in animal rights. And then I think they seem to lose interest, maybe because the reality of what the ALF is like today, or the reality of anarchism in ecology and veganism, I don't know. But for right now, that seems to be out of fashion, out of style. But obviously, it's easy to imagine that could come back into style. And so again, whatever, your blog, your YouTube channel, if you identified with anarchism or Marxism, that could easily bring you more, another 10,000 viewers internationally. But it is alienating you from exactly the people who could actually support your movement organization in your city or your town now.
Numero 10. The word anarchism could mean anything, but the further away anarchy participants stray from ecologically libertarian values, the more chaotic, parasitic, and destructive they become. Grasshopper is new to this scene. There are all kinds of people who call themselves anarchists who also call themselves vegans, many of whom have subscribed to this genius channel, which is all fine. The only problem is that most of them are also stupid. The ones who subscribe to this channel, of course, are all geniuses. I'm just talking about the non-subscribing people who refer to themselves as anarchists. They're stupid because when I ask them about what kinds of plans they're suggesting for this or that, such as border control, they typically have nothing and then go into goofy temper tantrums revealing other agendas. Politics is a very dirty game to play. This channel is an advocate of anarchist systems for every role that governments play. However, it's not an advocate of what this channel would call the kind of Larkin Rose stupidity that would take most of its don't worry be happy solutions, such as no imaginary line stupidity off of a John Lennon song. So you could also call Larkin Rose Seals dumbass Leninists. Ha 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 ha. The libertarian scene is beginning to get my drift, as demonstrated on the Cantwell show on a daily basis. Just a few years ago, Cantwell was kind of just an opening act janitorial helper for Adam Kokesh, another clueless open borders kid. Now Cantwell is beginning to think for himself, and I could go down a long list of libertarians who are moving more in my direction. These people are not yet even ecological libertarians, but they are at least becoming more logical libertarians. As John Lennon once said in some interview, I'm a bloody fucking genius. So you could say that Lennon did produce some useful lines indeed. However, his imagined songkind simply needed a little more clarification because it has been sorely misused by some of these anarchy dopes. Alan Watts produced some thoughtful lectures on anarchism as a logical follow-through in a world of a self-governing and enlightened public. The problem there is that most anarchy dopes can barely wipe themselves. They are hardly basking in Alan Watts' satori. They might be frying on the acid he used to get there. Nevertheless, they're still just ignorant and clueless about what it takes to manage a civilization.
To actually accomplish something worthwhile. Now, again, whatever you think of as the example of local activity and organization, I've had many examples on this channel. This guy in London, Violent Vegan, he's trying to organize a vegan hot dog shop. A hot dog stand is a form of outreach. And of course, it's hard to find people to work with. Anyway, so just say not all political organization and activism is about a street protest.
Numero 11. Well, duh. Yes, YouTube could be used as part of a networking system using video, databases, etc., to help people like the Violent Vegan to successfully start up and manage vegan enterprises like vegan food stands. I've been thinking about setting up networks like that for years. Violent Vegan is a little screwy, but he could be an example of someone participating in such a network, which could utilize state-of-the-art corporate networking tools. It could be great. However, this reminds me of a hilarious line that Steve Martin used, which goes like this. It's like working with 2-year-olds.
So, in technology, people talk about the difference between the early adopters of a technology and the mass market. Who happens to be the type of person to try something out when it's new and unreliable and expensive, as opposed to the potential for something to reach millions of people. Veganism, this is one of the problems. People like me are in a sense early adopters. The colorful cast of characters of eccentrics who quit their jobs and drop out of university to start a YouTube channel to show off, them riding a bicycle and wearing a bikini, they are early adopters. And the question is, where you live, who is the mass market?
Numero 12. These guys are not early adopters. This scene has been going on since the fucking 60s. Harley and Grasshopper are just the latest new age clowns currently on the scene. I mean, what a fucking joke. How do you think stores like Whole Foods and products like vegan milk started popping up in the 80s and 90s? This was after decades of experiments and sacrifices of some very kind and decent people doing what they thought was the right thing to do. Natural food stores opened and crashed over and over again. Juice companies, books, and people like Herbert Shelton, who was crying like a wolf in the night back in the 40s, died in the 80s. Early adopters, give me a motherfucking break.
So look, this is the final gap I want to talk about here, is the gap between digital vegans and the people who are their potential patrons, politically speaking, in any given city, wherever it is in the world. YouTube does not show me those people. YouTube does not show me the grandmothers who are sitting at home who would write a check and donate to support the Green Party, or who would donate to support a vegan party, a vegan cause of some kind, if you had an organization doing advocacy for any particular issue under the heading of veganism. Again, whether it's Save the Whales or Save the River or setting up a hot dog stand. Who are those people, and how do you reach out to them, those grandmothers writing the checks? And that'll be different. It's different in Spain, it's different in Germany, it's different from one city to another in Canada, it's different in Montreal from Vancouver. Who are those people, and how do you reach them? I can tell you one thing for goddamn sure. You are going to alienate those people. You are not going to reach those people. You are not going to earn their trust or support by identifying yourself with Marxism, libertarianism, intersectional feminism, or any other radical political ideology that only provides vegans with the ego trip of being rebellious, of being revolutionary, of being anti-establishment. It's the ego trip that, putting on a black mask and calling yourself an anarchist, well, what the fuck really changes? When you take off the mask and look in the mirror at the end of the day, you're the same person, and you've now destroyed your credibility with the only constituency who could actually care about you and sympathize with what you're trying to accomplish in the long term.
I can't trust any politician.
And now sit down again.
Genius is